Mufti, are you familiar with the works of David Hawkins? I am of recent. I mean, so this is a somewhat of a more recent discovery, and he's an absolute gem. Absolute gem. I feel that I was speaking to somebody in our one to one perspective sessions, and I was just highlighting that it's unfortunate that we don't have, as Muslims, we don't have many people tackling the kind of problems that um, unhealthy religiosity can bring with it. So, just slightly, without getting into it too much. So, let's just zero in on that. Religion, the power of faith, is unfathomably and majestically powerful. I mean, it is such a boost in life. It is something that will get you. People who have faith are not only usually healthier, they come back from adversity stronger. They usually can recover from whether it's going to be physical or biological or even just situational crises much better than their counterparts who don't have faith. Faith, usually on all levels, is so empowering. This is the gift of Iman that right throughout the Quran you see this being spoken of. Remember, the Quran is speaking of faith. Faith. It is always addressing Iman. In fact, it addresses the believers as just the people of faith. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu. Those of you who have faith. It seldom addresses Muslims as Muslims. The Quran does use the word Islam and it does use the word Muslim, but very rarely. And in fact, on one or two occasions, it uses it to distinguish between those people who don't really have faith, but they're just following the rituals. They may not be hypocrites, but they're just not. So, قالت الأعراب آمنا. That the Arab, the Bedouin said, we have faith. Allah says, don't say you have faith. You don't. But you've submitted to the fold of Islam. Now, so that's but there's nothing wrong in using the word Islam or saying we are Muslims. There's nothing wrong in that, and it's now a social identity. But just first of all, beginning from the fact that in the Quran and the Sunnah, this is not the case. Islam in the Quran and Sunnah does not really address you as a Muslim. It addresses you as one of faith, as the one who has faith. And it seldom uses, but there's no harm in using the word. It's not against you using the word Islam, but this is not how in the Prophet's time they used it. They didn't used to go around saying, those people are Muslims. Is that guy a Muslim? They would have said, is he a mu'min? This is how they would have used it in the Prophet's time. It is true, arguably, that this comes in more during the time of Bani Umayyah, especially with Abdul Malik ibn Marwan trying to demarcate a different identity and make us very distinct to Christians and Jews. So, and then a lot of this appears in his time, this usage, and there's a strong push, and there's no harm in it. I'm not saying it's a negative thing, but it's just interesting to know where it comes from. So, okay, now coming back to this whole thing of faith, it is so powerful, so just enriching on every level. However, like anything, there can be side effects, okay, which are unwanted and not from it. So you could take, like, I could give you, You could eat food which is very healthy, but there could be a side effect. Maybe you have an allergy to a particular kind of thing. Maybe the food, when it was presented to you, it went off. Maybe somebody left it in the heat and the food's now got spoiled. Or maybe, there could be many things. Food poisoning, something's got into it. It doesn't mean the food itself. The food itself is a source of nourishment and healthy, but by the time it makes it from there to you, something could have gone wrong, and something could be wrong with you to start off with. So you've got allergies. So just somewhat analogously going with that. So religion, for some people, you see, it turns like they get caught up with some of the side effects, which shouldn't really happen, but it does. And this is things like, so people are, let's say they're praying, they're doing things, but many people are just doing this as a kind of fear that if I don't do it, I'm going to get burnt by the hellfire. And so everything is simply about rendering like ticking a box so as not to be hurt and tortured. So a person thinks, oh my God, I don't pray, I'm gonna burn in the hellfire, oh damn, I better pray, damn, I better kind of. So this archetype that they project of God is this one who is a very strict accountant, almost like he's like a tax man, that if you don't submit, when your accounts are submitted, God to them is this kind of ultimate muhasib, this one who will take you to account, and you will be then punished, just as the taxman will not spare you if he catches you. And the taxman doesn't really have a relationship with you that is of a friend. It's a very stern relationship. It's not what the dynamic is not like, hey, how you doing? It's very professional, and it's just about, it could be polite when the tax HMRC write you, that they can be polite, somewhat friendly, but stern and professional. And there's no informality to it. There's no bond and dynamism between you and them. They're just there to take their money. If you fall short, you will be punished. Now, right, so now, okay, so people they get caught up in this projection of God, that they think God is, oh my God, I didn't pray Salah today, damn, I missed my Salah, I'm going to get punished, I'm going to get burnt. Yes, I better beg his forgiveness, I better beg his forgiveness. And then what happens is then they look around and everybody else, not everybody, but for the most part, almost everybody, doesn't do these things. So most people don't pray. As in Salah. Most Muslims don't pray Salah. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but let's just be honest. I've argued that probably it's a stretch to say anything, even 10% of Muslims. I would probably put it about 5 and argue that's a stretch. That 5% of Muslims pray 5 prayers. I wouldn't believe that's the case at all. But that's okay. Let's just stretch it. Let's say 5% of Muslims. So if you live in a Muslim area, Muslim areas ain't that far from here. Let's say we went to Alam Rock in Birmingham. If I stopped randomly 10 people, I would argue every 10 I stop, it's very unlikely one out of those 10 people that are just walking prays 5 times a day. I think that would be very rare. I'm that certain of it. I mean, obviously, if you went and stood outside a mosque, that's different. But I mean, just on the casual Muslim populated areas. So now this person is witnessing these other people, and he's thinking, or she's thinking, damn, this guy's going to burn in hell. She's going to burn. They're going to burn. they're going to burn. Oh my God, all these people are just going to burn. Now, this becomes a very like a neurotic way of looking at the world. This is very unhealthy. This understanding of everything is simply about firefighting. You are simply damage control. And then they don't know how to get out of this. And then they hold, and now this has different elements to it. On one kind of splinter reaction to this is self-righteousness. Sometimes people start thinking that they're actually better than all these people because they do pray. And that happens. Unfortunately, people start thinking that. The other way is they just get so bogged down into thinking that, oh my God, and then life, all this potential of life has gone. This is not how, you see, okay, if a person wants to live like that, maybe to these people it debilitates them. They can't function. I've got actually clients, I'm telling you, that they cannot function. Their life becomes so, it comes to a standstill. It becomes like OCD. It's so obsessive and intrusive, these thoughts are. And no Muslim scholars that I'm aware of deal with this issue. You see, it's the elephant in the room. And maybe that's because, maybe they feel that if we address it, we don't know, maybe they're not confident in addressing it, or maybe they are confident, but they think that if I address it, I might get too much backlash from people. I don't want to ever, I don't know, but whatever the reason, but generally people don't address this. That how do you address that? And that is that you have to, for these people, and this is why the people that are part of my kind of network loop that I'm speaking to, people that I'm having this conversation for, I always highlight to them that, you see, this, in my way, that of looking at the Quran with all its beautiful glory, is that it's speaking about mercy and compassion. That a person shouldn't see God. It never addresses God as this kind of accountant, this kind of tax man, somewhat of a tax man. And people, they need to stop that. Especially these people who are becoming debilitated. So yeah, these are huge challenges because, and I think sometimes this is where we were mentioning, I think in the beginning you were mentioning some other people that they may have this. So you can listen today. I feel many Muslims listen to people that are non-Muslim then, but have faith. And they find so much meaning from them that they unfortunately can't find from their own speakers, Islamic speakers, because the Islamic speakers are just either just giving the normal kind of nice stories and nice preaching. And there's nothing wrong with stories. Stories are beautiful. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But they're not tackling this issue. And maybe it's a scary issue. Maybe this, why is it not being tackled, is a conversation that needs to be had. But yeah, so that's the elephant in the room. Yeah, it comes down to the wrathful God of the Old Testament. It's very, it's very freaky for people. For some people, those people who it isn't, that's awesome. But I've come across a fair share of people. Right, let's move on. Let's see who we've got. All right. All right, I've got no. All right. Yeah, Dr. Peterson. Yeah. So this is why I feel that in this day and age, many Muslims are gaining so much from people like Dr. Dr. Jordan Peterson. Well, see, that's my dyslexia. which I don't own up to, Dr. Jordan Peterson, amongst other people, like you mentioned, was it David Hawkins or other people? There's these people, they provide some nourishment for something that people are not getting. Zainul Abidin, no one said that you'll be punished. There's no, he can also forgive. He can also beginning when we are, yeah, I mean, I get the gist of what you're saying. I know, right. I think you probably missed the point of what I was saying. So I think it's probably fair to leave it. You see, I think you've missed the trees for the woods. It's, I'm not saying, you see, you're saying no one said this. What I'm saying is there's an elephant in the room, especially with several people, that maybe you don't speak to people therapeutically, you don't deal with people. But if you did, you'd realize that there's a lot of people who, it's like saying, you see, you don't see things when they, like, you may not see people with illnesses, but you're not a doctor. So people don't come to you, but they do go to a doctor. You can ask a doctor in his locality how you know, how healthy do you think the people are in this locality that come to you? And he could say, well, bloody hell, you know, it's a nightmare. He could ask somebody just who just wanders, you know, who just lives on a particular road and just, he says, no, I think everybody's fine. I've never come across anybody with any illness. But then why would he come across people? Because people are not coming to him, they're not approaching him. He's so when you have people approach you on matters of faith, you come to realize where people are struggling. And a lot of people are struggling with this kind of imbalance, this um, this narrative that life is just one that you ought to just get out of it clean, like just save yourself and get out, save yourself from the fire kind of thing. This narrative, it may have been very healthy for, it may be very healthy for certain parts of the world, but definitely people living in this part of the world find it very challenging. And maybe many people do live up to that narrative, but this is where they then suffer neurotically, and then you see that when they raise these questions and they tell you in confidentiality what they actually think of the faith, and where they fear they're not being judged. Because I have those conversations with people that say that they are, you know, that they want to give up on Islam, that they've had enough of it, that they that this is what people keep telling them. I've had people break down. I've had people. So this, when you see that and you see it from many, not one, you get a little idea that okay. So okay, let's move on.